Not much really. I know it affects social issues, but apart from that, not that much.
There are a couple, but I don't know much about them. They seem like nice kids though.
They find it hard to communicate with others, and when they get put in a situation like that, they tend to freak out and struggle more than the average person.
Yeah, they're obviously a bit different, but like they're generally real funny and real nice to hang around.
Yeah, they're a bit weird, but you know, they're not too bad. Pretty nice.
Nothing much, hey. Just like, yeah, nothing. Yeah, a few.
What do you think about that?
I know, they're kind of weird.
Autism is a lifelong developmental disability which profoundly affects the person's ability to relate to other people, and also profoundly affects their ability to make sense of the world. There are three main areas of difficulty: social communication, being able to recognise facial expressions, tone of voice, understanding jokes, metaphors, or say here if you said, oh that's cool, I might think that you want me to put the air conditioning on. Also difficulties with expressive language. One young man I was working with was able to talk about his particular interest of woodwork very well, but he was totally unable to raise problems. So although he had a situation in school that was making him anxious for months and months, nobody knew about it because he couldn't talk about it. So alongside these difficulties in social communication, there's a real problem with social interaction, so being able to relate to people. People with autism may not understand subtle social rules, and when we break social norms, people tend to make judgments if people have a disability. So in that way, autism is a hidden disability. It may not be obvious. Somebody may breach a social norm, and then that can be interpreted as rude or weird and tends to be rejected. So, for a young person with autism, it can be a very isolating experience. There are certain key areas which really create a lot of problems for people with autism. And these are things that we have some experience of, that everybody experiences to some degree, but they're much, much more acute in autism. One of the most difficult things that people often experience is particular sensory sensitivities. So while I'm talking to you, I can filter out the sounds of the birds outside. For somebody with autism, that might be impossible. Another thing may be touch, so people might be sensitive to touch. So for example, for some people, wearing jeans would be intolerable, because not only would the sensation of the sort of rougher material be uncomfortable, but also they wouldn't be able to filter that out. So all the time they'd get that sensation constantly distracting them and overwhelming them. For somebody else it might be like having constant loud music played all day. Something like just having the wrong lighting could have the same kind of effect. So the actual physical environment can be absolutely overwhelming.
Some doctors call it a disorder, but I like to think of it as a difference. Well, to my understanding, it's just a difference in personality, a difference in the way we see the world, a difference in what we see. Some people might see one thing, autistic people see two things. Or at least that's how I see it. some people might find things funny and we may not.
Because of these difficulties, it's quite a hard life for somebody with autism. You've got, potentially overwhelming environments. You've got the sort of constant difficulties, the social difficulties. Because it may not be obvious, the nature of your disabilities isn't obvious. People are often responding to you in off ways, and again, we have experience of people being rude to us, but to imagine that that's something which is, a sort of constant part of your life, and you never know when it's going to happen. It's a very difficult, emotional, social world.
What's it like going to school being the autistic guy I am? It's a f***ing miserable experience, I tell you. Because I don't know why, but for some reason I find that people always make these so-called jokes which aren't actually that funny. I mean, everyone else around me seems to understand them, but me, I don't know why, but I take a lot of things really literally, and I just don't really understand the humour that some other people around me have. I mean, because what others find funny, the meaning of their humour is usually lost on me. And it's a f***ing miserable experience when you got all these people making these jokes towards you, and it just seems like, to them that might seem like they're being funny, but from my perspective it just seems like everyone who jokes around you is really trying to make high school as miserable as humanly possible of an experience.
If people are simply aware of the nature of difficulties and perhaps don't leap to judge, individuals can have a role in terms of understanding the nature of people's problems, not judging, and thinking to offer support if somebody looks like they need it. Asking the person with autism, how they can help, but most of all, not leaping